Dr. Ashley,
Yes.
it's a pleasure to have you as always.
Thank
And
you. Thank you.
and Doug, you with us now? Perfect.
Yes,
My
can you
boy,
hear me?
he showed up. He showed up. All right.
Ah,
We'll, we'll yeah, we can hear you. Be a little clearer. Now you don't want to wait for a minute. Hopefully you'll join us soon.
there we go.
uh, there you go. There you go.
All
There you go.
right.
There you go. All right. Good.
Welcome, listeners, to today's episode of the Black Business Roundtable podcast show. I am your host, Doug Blacksher, and as you see, I have my new Magnolia Engineering and Construction shirt. They are hitting the ground running after they took their pictures and everything. So I am personally advertising Magnolia Engineering and Construction today. We are live from the city of diversity, Oakland, California. I hope that you fathers had a wonderful Father's Day there. And most importantly, I hope that your kids appreciate you, and those of you who don't have biological kids, that your guardian, that your kids who you are guardians to, who you mentor, etc. It's devastating and tragic for me to point this out. In Oakland on Father's Day, there was a killing at Berg Sanctuary at Lake Merritt. Shooting broke out, and a young father is dead. Our prayers and our blessings go out to the family member, to the community, and for the brother who was struck down at the prime of his life. And we hope that all of you listening today, in some cities, they have what is called defunding the police. I call it transforming the police. We need police. I have family members who are police person, but we need to learn how to allocate those uh, resources of police services in community where, and if those of you who live in Oakland, the Montclair and Piedmont policing is the same policing that we have in the flatlands, which we call El Sobrante, West Oakland, we call in North Oakland, and the flatlands. And that's all we want as it relates to improving the policing in our community. Moving forward, our special thanks to sponsor who is dun, 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 Magnolia Engineering and Construction. We will soon be giving T-shirts away as a special prize for some of those people who are some of our listeners out there. Magnolia Engineering and Construction, a woman-owned construction company that has definitely changed the landscape as it relates to construction and engineering, not only in the city of Oakland, but in the county of Alameda, in the state of California, and in the United States of America. Thank you, Magnolia Engineering and Construction. Today's topic show will highlight, and let me be clear, we have a man, the myth, a gentleman who I've had the opportunity to meet almost 3 to 4 decades ago, and he is going to knock the politics out in regards to how and what a mayor sees and thinks to improve our community. Because right now, all across America, gun violence, homelessness, etc., has caused harm. And let me be perfectly clear. That's why you come, those of you who are Black and those of you who are white. This is a podcast that is designed for all people. So even though I may articulate and point out things that devastate the Black community, we all are devastated in regards to injustice. Excuse me, Everett, can you give me your favorite phrase? Injustice, please.
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Dr. Martin Luther King.
Right on, Everett. Um, Politics in Oakland, California, and gentrification in New York and beyond. Our second guest is going to be, once again, Walter Edwards. And he has told me he's worked the kinks out and he's ready to come on and compliment
There we go.
our
There
past
we go.
mayor, in regards to how gentrification, and he started off well last week, but because of technical difficulty, and I was so glad that he moved the schedule around to come back and complete his thoughts. Everett, the brother Shaw, let me tell you something. He was able to articulate, and it's important that we know, once again, this is not a white or black issue, because there are black people in our community who are doing just as much damage as people who are racist, who are white in our community. So we need to understand this is a human problem. This is not a black or white problem. This is a human problem. And if we have an opportunity to highlight that human problem and make it better, it makes it better for all of us. Our guest today, our weekly check-in with Dr. Ashley Coleman, Department Chair, Assistant Professor of Psychology at the University of the West. Welcome, Dr. Ashley. It is so great to see you. When I see you, it's like my blood, and I don't know how Everett feels. When I look at you, my blood pressure just goes. Dr. Ashley Coleman, it is great to see you, and we will have your words momentarily. One of our special guests is the Honorable Elihu Harris, Esquire, the 46th mayor of Oakland, California, from 1993 to 1999. Our second guest is Walter Edwards, real estate developer and chairman of Harlem Business Alliance. Due to the technicalities last week, once again, he moved his schedule around because he, if anyone, knows how important it is to not only highlight the what gentrification is, but how we combat that so that we don't lose those areas which have our deep history and culture and heritage that we can share with our young people. And the man, the myth, the man who fought the government 6 times, Everett Butler. Everett Butler Firm Consultant, Oakland, California. Brother, I hope you had a wonderful vacation. I saw the pictures of you and the family, and there's nothing like a cookout. I don't use barbecue or picnic, and we all know why I don't use those terms. Would that be fair to say? But I'm sure the cookout was wonderful, and just the pictures you sent, I enjoyed seeing them, and I hope you had a good time, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Family strong. That's my motto. Absolutely. Absolutely. Family strong. That's my motto and always has been. So I'm thankful to always spend time with the family because that's what it's about. And that's our driving force for all of us, really. That's the one thing that engine that we need to keep us going in the fight, the good fight. We all do. And we're going to turn it over to you, Dr. Ashley, so you can give us some of that needed therapy, warm thoughts, calm feelings, the warmth that we all need in this fight that we're in every day. And I so, like what Doug was saying, I so truly appreciate you because, typically we don't get this kind of exposure to someone like yourself. In this podcast, the one great thing about it is the fact that we do get that exposure, to someone like yourself that can spread out the word and touch so many that can hear you and it makes them feel so good. So we're blessed. And it's a blessing to have you. Big time.
Wow. Thank you so much. Everett, you were missed last week. Happy to hear that you were able to enjoy time with family. And it's always a blessing to be here with the Black Business Roundtable. And so
Yes, ma'am.
I first want to start by kind of sharing some reflections on the unfortunate shooting at Lake Merritt. That's actually my hood where I'm from. And I remember growing up and walking the lake with my parents.
Yes,
my mom and I would walk. My dad would lap us a couple times, hit the stairs. But and then I remember around the mid 90s where then there was the no cruising laws. And so that melanin presence, it started to dwindle. And so then when there was that resurgence, right, where, okay, now we're having, I remember Festival at the Lake, dancing as a kid at Festival at the Lake, and just the
Yes, ma'am.
camaraderie. And
Yes,
so
ma'am.
to see,
Yes,
yeah, I'm dating myself there,
yeah.
but
Yes, ma'am.
and
You
think
will
and
go.
think, yeah, yeah, oh
That
yeah,
was
I was
our
there.
time.
But in thinking about how beautiful it's
Man,
been to visit over the
yeah.
last like 7 years or so, and to be at the lake, and then to hear about this, it's something again that I wanted to just touch on, that we touched on last week. Is like taking care of our own and understanding that, let's take care of our city, let's take care of each other, let's, just I know it was, again, our youth, but they may not fully understand just how much a privilege it is. And where, again, there was like a 20-year hiatus where there wasn't that presence there. So I just wanted to share those reflections. What a week it's been. In preparation for tomorrow. And what is tomorrow? Tomorrow is actually the verdict of the Derek Chauvin case is going to be announced.
Yes, yes, yes.
And the topic I originally wanted to just speak on, but I want to highlight, is on boundaries. And
Yes, ma'am.
boundaries helps with our stress management. So how are we protecting ourselves? How are we protecting our time? How are we checking in with oneself to see if we're overwhelmed or what we need? And this is kind of the theme that we've been reflecting on, and I've been sharing over the past couple of weeks. But sometimes we need to check in with ourselves and do some what I call planning in anticipation of, right? What we may or may not hear tomorrow, right? I'm going to use the Derek Chauvin case as an example, but this could apply to anyone that may be anticipating or approaching a day that may be difficult, may be draining. Maybe it's because of a loss or a decision coming out. And so how do you sit with those feelings? It's with a plan. So if I think about the news cycle in the last week, where there were highlights like Father's Day, there were other highlights. But then again, the shootings, the news talking about the unfortunate collapse of the high rise in Miami, the anticipation of the Derek Chauvin case, and other statistics, that's overwhelming. And I recognized while I was watching the news earlier, again, everything that I guide the audience through, my shoulders were tight, I was tense, I was felt it in my stomach. And so I said, okay. Do I want, so in anticipation for tomorrow and thinking about what I want to do, I want to know the results of the sentencing. But I also have to think about and reflect on, what can I control? What can't I control? Going into the situation and thinking, if A happens, how will I take care of myself? If B happens, how will I take care of myself? Oh, Everett, I think you're
I was just praising. I thought just
Oh,
talking. I'm
yeah,
praising you.
no,
Just
thank
go.
you.
That's
Oh,
your
no, thank
yes,
you.
ma'am. Just
Thank you.
praising. My
Yeah,
fault.
thank
Just
you.
praising.
But no
Just praising.
problem.
That's right.
Yeah, no, thank you. But in thinking
Yeah.
about that, like, what do you need with that, with the news? What does the day look like? And just kind of the control we do have. We do have some control on what we take in, knowing that I have some meetings scheduled for tomorrow, but I'm thinking about the breathers I may need to take, the breaks from the news, the
Yes. Yes.
debriefing that I'll
Yes.
need to do. So my meetings are about my business, but I'll need to connect with people where I can just be Ashley and just say, this is how I feel. Do I need to journal it out? Do I need to cycle it out? How do I need to let that release? And so again, when I was just thinking about boundaries, no one is going to be able to tell you when you've had enough of whatever it is. When you're overwhelmed, how much you can take, how much
That's
people are going
true.
to ask for you. And when you are a high performer, people are going to want more, right? And more and more. Everyone's talking about the free throws that Paul George missed. No one talked about the 9 points he scored in clutch. So we are
Absolutely.
in a what have you done for me lately, right? Society, which could be what
Yeah.
have you done in the last 30 seconds? Take time out for
Absolutely.
you, right? Think
Right.
about your own
Yeah.
limitations. Limitations don't mean that you're weak. They mean that you're human, right? So take a time out. I was telling someone yesterday, what you do in the off season will help for your longevity. Athletes just don't go all the way around the clock. You need an off season to prepare. What does that look like? Right. So that you may be hurt and they may need to recuperate, but you won't be injured.
Right.
So go into it with a game plan to take that time out. Steve Nash, take those timeouts, right? We want to get
Yes.
those shots off, no air ball.
Yes,
So take
ma'am.
those
Yes,
timeouts.
ma'am.
What you need to do to restore, to keep persevering, because that's what we do. That's what we continue to do, is to persevere. But it's okay to regroup. It's okay to catch your breath. And it's also okay to think about how far you've come while you're still striving. So boundaries, people, put your masks on, your proverbial mask, tune into yourself, your breath, your body, right? And that's just what's on my mind again. And thinking of this week, thinking of the knowledge that we're going to hear today from our panelists, and then just in anticipation of tomorrow. So take your breaks, train, develop your own off seasons, and keep going.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Ashley.
Great words.
Thank
Great
you.
words.
Dr. Ashley, between you and Everett, this show has been doing great because a team that works together make a dream that will work together.
Mm-hmm.
And as you guys can tell, first you see half my face, then you see the other half. Now, I got my Magnolia t-shirt, but you guys make this show, and I thank you. We've been going, this will be our 7th show.
Wow.
And with the Talking to Donnie, we're doing a great job. And without the Ashley Corner and without the Everett Butler man who won 6 times, you guys are making us great. Thank you. I'm humbled. Thank you. Now, as I'm back, there was a couple things before Mr. Elihu. Has he come up backstage yet, Everett?
No, sir.
Okay.
No,
Well, I'm
sir.
going to
Not as
bring.
of yet. Not as of yet.
Okay. Well, I'm going to bring out some more news on this day, history, 6/24/2015, 2015, June 24th. Confederate flag flies at Alabama Capitol until this day, 2015. Monuments remain, courtesy of Equal Justice Initiative. For more information and to read the full story, go to www.calendar.eji.org and find out how in the 20th century, 21st century, we still have Confederate flag and fighting that ugly plague that still plagues some states in this country. Second, we want to mention these 2 ladies who continuously fight the big fight, not only for their local politics, their state, but for national. Nina Turner is running for Congress. 2021 Ohio's 11th congressional district election. Remember, she's taken the incumbent's position, Representative Marcia Fudge, and Marcia Fudge is serving as the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development in the Biden administration. So, Nina Turner, Black Business Roundtable podcast show, we got your back, sister. Get them. Second, Val Demings running for little, and I'll use Trump's word, little Marco Rubio. Little Marco Rubio, pack your little bags because Val Demings is coming to take your spot as a senator who represents all people. She doesn't flip-flop. She holds strong. She's a retired law enforcement. And I don't know if you guys watched the impeachment hearing, but she was one of the congressional people who walked the package with the impeachment to the through the halls of Congress and pointed out that past presidents are unethical and bad behavior. We are pulling for you, Val Demings. We know you got that. Did we have Elihu backstage yet, Everett? Because he is
no, sir. No, sir. Yeah, no, sir. But
Doug, can I? Oh,
yes.
go ahead, Ever.
No.
I was just
No,
going
no,
to say
no, no,
one
no,
of
no,
our
no. Go
listeners
ahead,
is
Dr. Harris.
asking for a breathe. I was just going to say one of our listeners is asking for a quick breathing exercise if we have time. But go
Yeah,
ahead. Do we
we
have time?
don't
Okay.
have time for you. I'll
Okay.
put mine on mute.
Okay. I'm going to guide
That's
us
good.
through this.
I need that same breathing. That's a good thing. Let's go.
I'm
Yes,
watching
ma'am.
it. So this one we're going to do is just a brief body scan meditation. Okay.
Yes,
So I'm going to invite
yes,
you
ma'am.
to take some deep breaths in and out. Take another deep breath and exhale. And as you're breathing, I'd like you to notice your feet on the floor. Notice the sensation. Wiggle your toes. Notice the weight and pressure. Can you feel your legs against the chair? Is there any pressure, pulsing, heaviness, lightness? Is your back against your chair? Bring your attention into your stomach area. If your stomach is tense or tight, let it soften. Take a breath. Notice your hands. Are your hands tense or tight? If they are, release and wiggle your fingers. Now bring your attention to your arms and your shoulders. Let your shoulders drop and be soft. And what about your neck and your throat? Soften your jaw and relax. Take one more deep breath and notice your body. And when you are ready, return to your present moment.
Dr. Ashley, once again, an amazing Dr. Ashley Coleman moment. Thank you. I
Thank
needed
you.
it.
Mr.
Now,
Harris has joined us too. Mr. Harris has joined us. Let me click it. Oh, you're right.
I would like to introduce the man, the myth, Dr. Honorable, PhD, and every other prefix I can give him, Honorable Elihu Harris. How are you, sir?
Hey,
Thank you
Doug.
for joining in.
Thank you for having me.
We have been excited knowing that you're coming on. And considering your frat brother was on last week, we know you're going to wrap it. You're going to wrap and get it going. When you were mayor of Oakland, all I can say is Oakland had very good days. We had challenges, especially with the firestorm. But we asked you on today, in light of all the challenges, not only in Oakland, but across the United States, can you give us some perspective? First, give us some background about your amazing accomplishments, but give us some background of what you how you made Oakland better when you were mayor of Oakland, some of your history, and enlighten us how we as Black business people, first off, we need to get politically involved so we can get some of those dollars in our businesses that have been hurt, been devastated by the coronavirus, and highlight how the coronavirus has highlighted the damages in Black businesses. Sir,
Okay.
take it away. Thank you,
All right.
sir. Please.
Well, I grew up in the Bay Area and certainly in Oakland, Berkeley. Went to church in East or West Oakland, and have seen the evolution of Oakland over the last 50 years. And I would tell you this: that we had a defined community 50 years ago, geographically, culturally, and to a great extent economically. And over the last 50 years, we've seen a decline, not only in the numbers, but in the influence, and certainly in the economic capacity of our community. And it didn't happen by accident. Some of it by gentrification, some of it because we were not focused on holding on to a very precious resource, which is urban land. And quite frankly, because we lost a sense of community. We had one when the Panthers were involved. We had one when the Black churches were strong. We had one probably to a great extent until the drugs came in, particularly with the crack epidemic, and certainly with the exodus in the year 2000 because of Jerry Brown's desire to gentrify Oakland. We saw a great outflux of Black Americans into the suburbs as far away as Sacramento, Stockton, Tracy, and quite frankly, that decimated our community. Many of the middle-class people left looking for cheaper housing. Now they got 3-hour commutes to get back into Oakland where the jobs are.
Honorable Elihu Harris, let me ask you something. Jerry, you mentioned Jerry Brown. Mm-hmm. I myself, when Robert Bob was here, he was trying to do some magnificent things. And some of our current administration in Oakland, including the mayor, Libby Schaaf, is a protege of Jerry. Can you talk about how Jerry Brown, from your perspective, came into this city and took redevelopment money that was designed to improve and enrich the Black community, all communities, specifically in minority communities and Black? Can you talk about that a little bit, sir?
Yeah, in March of 1999, Jerry Brown was quoted in the Wall Street Journal as saying his number one goal was to destroy the Black political machine in Oakland. When I asked him about it, he said he was misquoted. He wasn't misquoted. He came to Oakland because it was an opportunity. He lived in San Francisco, but he couldn't get elected mayor of San Francisco. He came to Oakland to restart his political career. He used Oakland like a stepchild in order to get where he was going. Oakland was like Cinderella to him. It was just a stepchild. It had all kind of potential, but he wanted to utilize that to get back into statewide office, attorney general, and then governor. Real clear. He made clear he would benefit his friends and ignore everybody else. He did it with developers. Certainly, he did it with a number of different people who he personally had relationships with, and none of them were Black. So, I mean, let's be real clear. Jerry Brown achieved an agenda that suited him. It had no benefit to the Black community, even though he was largely elected with the Black vote, who believed he was the white benefactor, the Messiah, who's coming back to Oakland to save Oakland from itself.
You know what? Do you mind if I call you Elihu?
Absolutely.
You're talking to you right now. I can, as I tell Dr. Ashley all the time, I can have a double Hennessy. We're gonna light it up now.
All right.
Let's keep it 100. Back in 1993 to 1999, Oakland, and my dad and I started a land abatement business up in Oakland Hills, and I think that was under you.
Right.
You had put because of the hills had been there so many properties up there that were fire traps, and that's what one of the reasons I called up there. Can you tell our audience, as a retired Black mayor in a Black city, how you were able to direct dollars? Because when my dad and I had the business, there was only a few Black companies. One was, I think it was Arthur Young Debris Removal and A. Green and Shrubbery Service. How you were able to corral our government which the current mayor, Shaft, who is a protege of Jerry Brown. Let me be perfectly clear, audience. Following up what this great man, Honorable Elihu Harris, said, our current mayor is a protege of Jerry Brown. So now we know why there's a lack of economic development, and we know why the diversity study showed that 86 cents out of every dollar, and that's out of $450 million, go to white men. So getting that out of the way, sir, how did you successfully manage to put more dollars into black businesses when you were mayor under your successful tenureship here, sir? Thank you.
Two things. One is certainly prior to Prop 209, but there was the Bakke decision, and then used that to say that race should not be a factor. In my position, everyone should be included. And so what I would demand was that there be black inclusion. Don't bring me a contract. Don't bring me opportunity if it doesn't have equity as part of its command. And look, it's not just Oakland. Look at Alameda County. Alameda County, only about 1% of all the black contractors in Alameda County goes to blacks. You know, we are being shut out. And people use Prop 209 as an excuse, but there's no enabling. Look, you can make sure that people who get contracts understand, you don't bring me diversity, you don't get to work. You don't bring me partnership, you don't get to work. But we don't have that ethic. We don't have that commitment. And as a result, we don't get to work. We don't get the dollars. They're not coming into our community. And the people who work in our community are always workers, never owners. Always employees, never employers.
You know, what strategies, because I'm on the Oakland East Bay Democratic Club, I'm chairperson. And I'm going to say, I'd like for Dr. Ashley and my brother who won 6 lawsuits against the military and won, I'd like for you guys to ask some questions, because this man is a wealth of information and a powerhouse politically here in Oakland. I'd like to give some further shout out to you, Honorable Elihu Harris. You have, with Barbara Lee, put together, can you, before I ask this next question, can you talk about that program that you and our congressional representative, Barbara Lee, you put together a program where, and I'll let you take it away from there.
Well, 25 years ago, Barbara Lee and I saw the work of black elders in East Oakland who wanted to celebrate Martin Luther King and remember what he stood for, and the whole question of where we go from here, chaos or community. And we believe we needed to build a bench. So we set up a program called the Martin Luther King Freedom Center. And we started working with young people in the schools. It persists to this day. We have lecture series. Young people are doing civic engagement. We got a grant from the state of California for the last 5 years. We work with the Dolores Huerta Foundation in the Central Valley. We're operating in 5 cities around the state to give young people a sense of purpose, a sense of connection to the community, and a sense that they can make a difference, that they can connect with the community, they can educate the community, and more importantly, they can in fact be the leaders that we want to see, that are going to be multicultural, that are going to be inclusive, and more importantly, are going to be about an agenda and to be about community.
Dr. Ashley, Everett, you guys like to ask a question? If not, I can fire questions all day to this man, because my brain is absorbing all stuff. Everyone mute your, when you're not speaking, please mute. Make sure everyone.
What you were just speaking about youth and youth programs, to me, that's the key to change and to opportunity situation and be empowered to do good things. And it's all about as far as public government, what from a public entity, being a mayor or being a state or being federal or grassroots, what kind of programs they offer to the youth. And that's the thing that has changed over the years, at least from my understanding. You know, I'm 58 years old, and when I was a young man, there were programs that I was involved in that changed my life. You know, I grew up in a war zone in East Oakland, in Serenity Park, and I was a statistic that wasn't supposed to make it, but I went on to become an electrical engineer, have an academic scholarship, graduate top of my class in junior high school and high school, and go on and perform. And that was all due to programs like peer teaching program that I was in through UC Berkeley that as a seventh grader allowed me, they pulled me out of a group of people because of my CTBS standardized test scores. They were like in the 1 percentile of the nation. So they came and got me and they gave me BART money to go to UC Berkeley every Saturday. And they spent time and taught me lesson plans. Then they would come back to the school on Wednesday, the people at UC Berkeley, they would have me teach my math class. So I was allowed to teach my math class 1 day a week, every Wednesday. I taught the subject matter.
Well, look, there's no question we've lost that sense of community. We still have organizations like the Boys and Girls Club, the East Oakland Youth Development Center, and things like that. But in the final analysis, one, you have to create the program. Two, for example, you mentioned going to UC Berkeley. My girl grew up in East Oakland. They went to Oakland Public School, and they ended up going to schools like, they went to Berkeley. They were in the Mason program. They got a chance to understand.
Yeah, Mason.
They had a chance to understand they can go to the University of California. It wasn't something that was beyond them. They were not relegated to any particular institution. They could go wherever their dreams would lead them. Look, it's important that we have knowledge, but knowledge without dreams is often wasted. So you got to make sure that you are feeling you can pursue your dream, you can fulfill your dreams, and that your dreams are within reach. I remember one of my favorite quotes was from the Underground Railroad, Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman said, "I freed 1,000 slaves." She said, "I could have freed 1,000 more if I could have just convinced them they were slaves." You got to deal with the mind. If you think you can't do it, you don't even get up off your butt to try to do it.
I want to piggyback off of that, Honorable Elihu.
Absolutely.
And the reason why I want to piggyback off of that, Dr. Ashley, I'm going to get back to it. What do I say is the main reason that we need you? Our people have so long been tortured, endured that the way that slavery is just what we deserve. It's a mind thing. Everett and I fought billion-dollar companies. Everett fought the government, and we win because we keep our mind strong. Dr. Ashley, just piggybacking off what Honorable Harris said, can you explain how important it is once the man, the woman, or the person, whoever gets control of your mind, how they overwhelm you from a psychological perspective? Thank you.
Sure, I'll reflect on that and then also follow up with a question to Honorable Harris. But, when I think about, again, mindset, the battle always starts in the beginning of our ears, between our ears. And when we think about what are the self-statements we're saying, I'm curious, actually, in segueing, I'm curious about where we lost community. Because I'm a proud Oakland native, proud Mesa program graduate. Thanks, Mom and Dad. They forced me to go. Thank you so much. But when I think about where we lost, I'm just going to segue for a second, Doug, where we lost community. Honorable Harris, what would be your first step in getting it back? Because I'm representing those older millennials, that 40 and under crew, and I can't. And someone who loves Oakland. But what would be your first step or recommendation and us getting back to reestablish that community?
Well, I don't use rocket science, Dr. It starts in the home. Now, I know Doug's parents. Hey, Doug was clear, and his parents were clear. Doug was going to do something, be somebody, make a contribution. Because his mama don't play; she don't go out to recess. And you got to have that. You got to have fathers who are willing to be fathers. You can't have fathers fathering children and leaving the home. You can't have these young men being raised by the street. That's where community breaks down. Mm-hmm. When you have no community examples, you don't have a church, you have no institutional structure to give you guidance, to set moral guidelines, to set structural guidelines. When you're out of bounds, know that you're going to have your neighbors. It takes a village. Mm-hmm. We lost the village. A lot of people left town. A lot of people stayed in town. There's only two kinds of people in Oakland: those who couldn't afford to leave and those who could afford to stay. That's it. And as a result, you have a whole lot of people who are intergenerational people living in the housing authority, never got out. They got comfortable in poverty. We got teachers who come in here and make their money and they go to the suburbs.
Mm-hmm.
Used to be the teacher lived in the community. You can see your teacher at school, see your teacher at church. They knew when you were acting up, they knew your parents. Your parents weren't having it. You have teachers who are being cursed out by parents when they try to discipline the children, not physically, but say, sit up straight, pay attention, do your homework. The parents come cuss them out. Don't talk to my child. Don't tell them to do what you say. I'm the authority, and then they don't discipline their own children. So there's a lot of things at stake. But it comes with values. It comes with goals. It comes with having an agenda, having a sense of community. We're all in this together. We rise together. We hang together. One of my favorite quotes, and it wasn't from him, but the first one I heard say it was Walter Fauntleroy. We all came here in different ships, but now we're all in the same boat.
Can I just follow up too? Also, I think those are excellent points, and something about Oakland that that actually led me to pursue psychology growing up in East Oakland is the human sex trafficking issue that we have.
Yes.
So not only do we have a breakdown of just of recently there was a pictures are often being circulated of our young women who were missing. One young woman was just rescued by a hotel, thank God, by police in a hotel. And just thinking about all those other structures, because again, my friends and I, we're from that old school of parenting. So, I'm going to show up at the school raised by a retired Oakland public school teacher in that village. And we're trying to figure out where the gap is, because we love our city, but we recognize that the youth is not responding to those sense of threats or that fear of the elder and acknowledging the elder. But I just want to also bring voice to another issue that I hope gets attention of our audience, is that we have also a human sex trafficking issue that we have got that also starts in the home of respect for the man and the woman and our youth.
I have a friend of mine who was the principal of a middle school in Oakland, and some of the young girls that were going to that middle school is in West Oakland. I'm not going to say which one. They used to leave the cafeteria in the lunch hour and engage in sex over on San Pablo. And when he asked them about it, they said, "How much money do you make? You make more money in lunch than you make working all day." It's about values. It really is not about, they believe that economics. Look, I talked to drug dealers. I said, "What do I got to do to get you guys to stop selling drugs? I don't really care about the drugs, but you're killing each other." And their attitude was, "Hey, look, I got baby mama, I got kids, I got mama. I'm going to do what I got to do." I said, "So if that means killing somebody else, that's what I got to do." I said, "You fighting over a corner you don't even own. You don't own the liquor store. You don't own the barbershop. You don't own anything, yet you're trying to defend somebody else's property as your property." I mean, that's just crazy. Look, when I was growing up, I was more afraid of my father than I was the police. If the police arrested me, I tell them, "Keep me in jail. Please don't send me home. My father will kill me. You will be responsible for murder." So, who are they afraid of? They're not afraid of each other. They're not afraid of the police. And they think a gun gives them the capacity to be powerful, not their mind, not even their body, but a gun. When you believe your power comes from the barrel of a gun, what kind of future do you have? When you see young girls twerping on the ambulance, when a young man got shot during Juneteenth, what kind of value system is that? A man just losing his life. You're twerking so you can be on the news? I mean, that's just sick. That's pathological. As a psychologist, you got to understand there are more patients than there are psychologists in Oakland.
Yeah, what you're saying is so true. But to me, it all comes down to, and that's just what it's all about. Hustling, whether you're on the street, whether you're selling dope, whether you're trying to be a doctor, it's all about what you see. It's all about opportunity. I don't care whether you're white, black, or where you're from. It's about as you as a kid growing up. Where's the opportunity for you to succeed? What is it? Is it for me to be a rapper? For me to be a pro football, basketball player? For me to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer? Is it for me to be an accountant? It's the things that you're exposed to. It's what you're exposed to. And that's the job of adults in the public system, to make an environment for all kids, whatever age, where they can see opportunity at an early age, where they have a vision of opportunity. They have access to growth. And that's where the whole structural racism thing comes from. UC Berkeley just did a huge study that's got national recognition a couple of days ago about structural racism, and it's got to do with residential segregation. That's the heart of it, and that's the extent. It's not about we being racist or racism being against us because I'm black. It's the area you live in. It's the dynamics of where you live as far as the resources that you get. If you live in an all white area, they have all of the resources. They get all of the money. They have all of the values. They have a healthy environment. They're not living around diesel trucks, bad environment, being exposed to wrong environmental issues that cause you to breathe wrong, have asthma. Blacks have asthma 4 times to 1 to white people because we live in harsh environments. Because we grew up in harsh environments. So we're in hoods. We're in areas where they disinvest from public infrastructure. They don't spend no money on streets and fixing stuff. When they pigeon-toed us, redline us into certain areas, after they get us into those areas, they commercialize the area or industrial real estate and commercialize to block you in. And all that, that's where all of the bad environment comes in around. In the white areas, you have single family home zoning, and you don't have any of that. You have, it's just, that's just.
Let me interrupt and say one thing. Everything you're saying is true. But black folks been poor a lot longer than they've been crazy.
Absolutely.
And so those become excuses. When I was chair of the Peralta Community College District, I was much more liberated than when I was mayor. Because you know what? When I saw somebody, a young person, I said, why don't you go to college? You don't have any job skills. We'll train you. You can go to Peralta. I don't have tuition. I said, I'll waive the tuition. I ain't got no books. I'll get you some book money. Well, but I got rent. I get you financial aid. When you eliminate the excuses and people still continue to not take advantage of opportunity, it's more than the denial of opportunity. It's lack of ambition. I remember people used to have to work at night and go to school all day. But you got to have a sense of goal. Where are you trying to go? What are you trying to do with your life? What is your contribution to your community, to your parents, to your kids? You know, it takes hard work. It's not easy. We shall overcome was the theme for a reason, not because it was easy, but because it was the matter of will. We shall overcome, not we shall try to overcome. We shall overcome. Determination, conviction, and being willing to do whatever it takes to achieve the given result. And that was contributing to your own family and contributing to your community.
You're absolutely correct in that and everything that you said, but you also have to, at the young ages, you got to show the way. You like what you're saying. You got to start at the younger ages of showing the way because what the streets do, they show the way of how to hustle. I grew up in a war zone, so you learn how to hustle. That's there for you. So you can see how to not be having holes in your shoes or holes in your pants or how to make it. So that's why it's easy for them to go do that because they're shown. Ain't nobody coming there in the 2nd and 3rd and 4th grade, lawyers, judges, doctors, talking to the kids saying, hey, this is the path you could take. This is how I'm going to show you how to get here. And that's what's needed. That's what I do, and that's what's needed. Is that type of intervention at a young age, of showing you the will, the way to give you that ambition and that growth and that opportunity. You know, that's what needs to be done, and that's what's not being done enough. Period. You know?
Well, one thing, and further what you said, you know what? You got to go back. You know, we have to go back into our community. You know,
yes, we do.
Let me tell you, when I was mayor, there was no part of Oakland I didn't go into. Sobriety Park, you know, Brookfield, you name it. There was any night, daytime, I didn't care. You know what? Because it was my community. I wasn't worried to get shot by a drug dealer because I wasn't messing with their drugs. I'm not the police. I wasn't there to enforce the law. I was there trying to encourage and help. It was frustrating sometimes, but again, you got to go back. When I was Chancellor Peralta, we had people go out East Oakland and recruit people to come to college. You know, I'd ask some of those white faculty members to go in there. We ain't going. That's where your students come from. You don't want to go into the place where your students come from. Why don't you go get to work in another district? Why don't you work where the white people? If you want to work in diverse communities, you got to go out and recruit diverse students. If you don't want to do it, get you another job.
You know, I would like to real briefly go over the church. Gentrification has caused miscommunication with OPD and churches on Sunday morning. When you get a group of white people calling in on a church that's been in a community for a decade because they're too loud, you should move out of that community, not the church get fined and get kicked out of the community. Can you elaborate on that, Honorable Harris, sir?
Well, first of all, when I was mayor, there were over 700 Black churches in Oakland. Now some of the churches in Oakland, they got choirs bigger than the congregation. We need to have churches that are not 1 day a week institutions. We got to have churches that are 7 day a week institutions. When kids don't have a place to go after school, go to church. I don't mean to go to religious studies. Have tutors. Have them in safe houses where students can play games, get a little snack. Have somebody give them a little mentoring or encouragement with their math or their science. You know, what is the church? It was only open on Sunday from 11 to 1. I don't want to be part of a church that is not part of the community. I don't need church as a 1 day a week institution. So churches now, yeah, they get loud on Sunday, and maybe people are offended by it. But if they were loud every day because somebody was in there, it would be the rule rather than exception with churches where activities took place. Right. So people either make the adjustment or they move. So I'm just telling you, the church has got to step back up. The church has been a strong community institution in Oakland since before I was born. It is not doing what it should be doing. It is not playing the role that it traditionally played. The ministers, a lot of them got other jobs. They think it's like a part-time job being a pastor. If you aren't willing to work 7 days a week, hey, close your church, join somebody else's church, and make that church relevant in the neighborhood in which it's located. Without that, it's just a building.
I am so motivated by everything you're saying. And I knew you would light it up. So keep lighting it up.
All right, brother. Thank you for the opportunity. And thank you. I didn't mean to dominate so much of this discussion. You had great guests.
No.
I loved hearing Dr. Ashley. I wanted to go and meditate. I didn't really want to come on the air. And she had me so relaxed. I didn't know if I was going to be able to say anything at all.
That's an honor hearing that from you, Honorable Harris. It really is.
I may come see you as a client. Shoot, my wife stressed me out every day. I need some meditation.
Can I follow up and just if we have just a few, just to pick your brain? We know that sports is very important in Oakland. It has been, a community building activity. We've had Babe Ruth, we've had basketball leagues, and there's been talks off and on, EOYDC and whatnot. There've been talks off and on about a midnight sports league, what we could do to kind of, give opportunities, in those after school hours, but also into the evening, right? To give alternatives. Just curious, Honorable Harris, what do you think about that idea, or what can we do? Because some of our young people too, they're just active, right? And don't have that outlet. So I'm just curious about just what you would do, or just because I too share Doug's, and I'm sure Everett's motivation to roll up the sleeves. Because again, we love Oakland, and we don't want to lose it. So just want to hear your thoughts on that.
Two things. First, Oakland is still the cultural home for Blacks in Northern California. It ain't Stockton. With all due respect, like I want my brother to listen, not Sacramento. It's Oakland. And people come back to Oakland. That's where you have the largest mass of Black people in Northern California. And if we can't demonstrate here that Black people have the ability for self-determination and achievement, you're not going to be able to do it anywhere else. That's number one. Number two, is very important. We've got to make sure that there are constructive activities. I used to sponsor Babe Ruth. My law partner, John Burris, sponsored Babe Ruth. We play each other. We had that kind of commitment. We'd go out to Royal Viejo. We'd go out to Havens Court. And I'd be there on Saturday watching the kids. And you know what? And those kids, for the most part, never got in trouble. Because they wanted to make sure they weren't in jail, because they wanted to make sure they were showing up for their game on Saturday. Midnight basketball, we had that. And they're talking about bringing midnight basketball back. But you can't just have kids playing basketball at midnight. Some of these kids are so young, they need to be at home. Why don't we have basketball at 8 o'clock in the evening? Midnight, these kids ain't working. Reason they got to play basketball at midnight. Now, and I'm talking about young kids. Yeah, you're grown, you're a teenager, 20 years old. Yeah, that's a constructive activity. We got 7 and 8-year-olds out on the street half the night, hanging out with the drug dealers, being lookouts. So I think sports and activities are fine. But I would tell you, that they got to be constructive, they got to be structured, there's got to be supervision, you got to make sure these kids get to and from these sports activities safely. And if you have no transportation, you have no parents, what you have is a whole lot of young people out on the street, but no parental guidance, no structure, and you may have a whole lot of other problems. So I'm not saying we shouldn't do it because we should, but it's much more to it than open up the gym.
Everett or Dr. Ashley, you guys have another question, or if not, I'm going to move into transition into when you and Robert Bob were in the city of Oakland. You guys, and this is called the Black Business Roundtable podcast.
Right.
So when you and Robert Bob worked together to make programs like prompt payment for small contractors, really help Black contractors because we can't get the lines of credit as white businesses do. Can you talk about how that, because you brought him up, Jerry Brown, how he destroyed a lot of that growth when he came in and you were out, or you left, or you had finished your term up. Please, sir, can you talk about that for a minute?
It's about having an agenda. Robert, Bob, and I were like-minded. We wanted empowerment. I remember Robert, Bob, and I went to China. And we were in Shanghai. They talked about, hey, if you guys can bring over a multiplex film show, we'll give you all the money. We just want to have a multiplex, And we said, wow, maybe we ought to be in China. It's either do something in China, it is in Oakland. And so part of the issue is, look, Jerry Brown. You mentioned Jerry Brown, and I got another meeting, but I got to tell you this. So when Jerry Brown, he replaced your uncle and other people on the Port Commission and replaced it with white developers and gave them Oakland Ninth, what is now called the Brooklyn Basin. He gave a white firm $70 million to do what's the name of right there on Telegraph Uptown. He gave them $70 million profit. He gave Phil Tagami $8 million to be the construction manager for the Fox. And then when he became governor, he took all the redevelopment money that was left that he hadn't given away to his friends and took that. So all this stuff doesn't happen. So two things, and then I'm gonna let you guys finish it if you want. Two things. One, you have to make sure the people you elect have an agenda. And two, you got to hold them accountable if you buy into that agenda. Don't let people talk to talk. Make sure they walk the walk. If they want to be in office, if you got to go down there and yell at them, if you got to go down there and threaten them, do what you got to do. People should not want to be in office because it's not easy. No. I used to tell people when I was mayor of Oakland, if this was a good job, they never would let me have
it. I got to ask you one, and I know you got to take off, but one last question. The assembly seat is coming up right now. Will you tell our audience how important it is to put the right person in that seat so that Oakland gets representation? Because Oakland in the assembly right now, we're not getting good representation. Can you understand? And we appreciate you being on the show, sir. Thank you.
First of all, the state of California, as does the federal government, hundreds of billions of dollars. And my job as the representative from Oakland in the legislature was to bring back the booty. And if you can't, I'm a pirate, and I'm supposed to go up there and pillage and do whatever I can to make sure that whatever resources in state government don't stay 80 miles away, but come back to the city that I represent. If you're not going up there to fight for Oakland, keep your butt at home. So I'm only saying to you that whoever they're elected, what are you going to do for Oakland? What are you going to do for our community? How do we hold you accountable? Are we only just going to see you on election day every 2 years? Or are we going to see you every day? Are you going to come home and be in the community meeting with the Chamber of Commerce, helping businesses, talking to seniors, talking to young people? It's a hard job. It's a 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week job. You don't want to do it? Do something else. That's what I would tell you. So whoever gets elected, and the election is a week from Monday, the turnout is 15%. I lost one election in Oakland. I lost by a couple hundred votes because Black folks didn't vote. And I got beat by a white woman. I'm not mad because she was white. I'm not even mad because I lost, but life was better. But I thought I was fighting for my community to make sure it was included because there was no black legislator north of LA. Willie Brown was the mayor of San Francisco. Willie said, you got to do this. You're the only one that can save the seat. And so I ran. When my community didn't vote, I said, well, if it wasn't important to my community, it wasn't important to me. So we got to get out and vote. There's only a 10% turnout as of Monday. And somebody's going to get that office. Whether we vote for them, either you get the people you vote for or you get the people somebody else votes for.
Honorable Elihu Harris.
Can I ask?
Man. Oh, go ahead, Everett.
No, you were awesome, sir. But I want to. Do you have, out of the people that are running for that position, do you have a recommendation or somebody that you like?
Yeah, but I'm not gonna make it yet. It's gonna be a runoff. No. It's gonna be a runoff. Ain't nobody gonna get 50% of the vote.
Gotcha.
And because most of the votes are already in. One of the things I try not to do is alienate people unnecessarily. Because my favorite candidate is not gonna come in first. But if they're in the runoff, then I will consider, and I talk, look, it's going to be one of three people. It's going to be Johnny, who's the East Indian young lady. She's 29, very progressive. She knows more about what's going on in the black community than any of the other candidates. She's about social justice, about the homeless, and she got agendas. She wants to take Sacramento to deal with all of those things. So obviously I like her a lot. Mia Bata, who's the wife of the existing attorney general and trying to succeed him in the assembly. She is a self-described black Latina who's on the Alameda School Board. And then the last one is a woman named Leah Bella, who's the Filipino woman who's the vice mayor of Alameda. Two of those three, in my opinion, will make it through the primary. And then we'll see where we're at.
Honorable Elihu Harris, before you leave, I want to introduce you to Walter Edward.
Yes.
Yes, sir. I mean, when I have great legends, I like to make sure if you don't know him, if you didn't know him, now you know him.
Well, you talked about him enough, so I hope he understands his ears should be ringing. Hey, man, I'm sorry, I got another meeting I got to get on. Hey, I enjoyed it. I hope I didn't dominate too much of the conversation.
No, you were. Can you come back and whenever you're ready? You have enlightened all of us in regards to things that we knew and stuff that we didn't know. We appreciate you.
Well, let me tell you something.
Love you.
Look, my parents opened a funeral home 70-some years ago, and there are only two black-owned funeral homes three black-owned funeral homes in the East Bay. That's the deterioration in business. Fouché, Harris, and Rose Manor in Richmond. That's it. All the rest are owned by white corporations, CP Bannon and the like. They take our money back to Texas, and they hire black people like Chapel of the Child, but they do not, and they give back something to the community. Let me be fair about that. We got to have our own businesses so we can spend our dollars in a way that they're going to continue to be distributed in our community. So again, appreciate you guys. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to participate.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Everybody, let's give him a big round.
Thank you, guys.
Man, you lit it up.
So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Right, take care,
we
guys.
look forward to having you back very soon.
I look forward to having another conversation. Thank you.
Stay strong, brother. God bless. Man, I am fine. I'm ready to go put my Black Panther shirt on, but I've used my Magnolia shirt instead. Magnolia. We're going to take a second out, Mr. Edwards, Walter. We're going to we want to give a couple of endorsements, acknowledgement. Thank you, Donnie Glover, blackusa.news and bemorenews.com. Be sure to chime in on Sister Biz and with Nicole and Tamara on Wednesday, and Black USA Crypto News with my man, my brother, Kamal Hubbard, and my sister, Tamara Brown, with Sister Biz. It is important that we reach out, listen, learn from people who look like us, and not the watered down version clips that you would hear on 2, 4, 5, 7, and 11. These brothers and sisters are giving you the facts. Just like Elihu, I can just say this. Elihu gave me information that I had not heard of in regards to the church, in regards to someone had said to mention his funeral home, and I forgot about that. But the brother is sharp. He mentioned it. He mentioned it himself. So thank you once again, Honorable Elihu Harris. We appreciate you being on the show. Also, Magnolia Engineering and Construction. Learn more about Tammy Willis, owner of Magnolia Engineering and Construction. Visit, hold on. You can order these t-shirts off the website. Call in, look at how they have really a Black woman-owned company that stepped into a field that is traditionally white male dominated. We are going to move into our next section, and let's do a mic check. Mr. Walter, can you hear me? Okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Walter? Okay, we can't hear you. Okay. Why don't we have a quick conversation between the three of us, and we'll see if we can help Walter Edwards work on his sound check again.
Yes, sir. Well, I want to give a quick shout out, waiting on that, to somebody that supports the show, and they hooked up my hair, so I have to give a little love. World Braiding Center on 1594 150th. It's a great family-owned business that does great work, and they're involved with the community. They're not just a shop. They go out and they give to the homeless. They do a lot of things that are very giving. That's why I wanted to give them a shout out, and the main reason why is they're good people. Family-owned business. So anybody that's looking for a good place, a good home to get their hair twisted, locked, braided, all of the above, World Braiding Center on 150. Great place.
Nice. It's a good look. Good look.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you. Yes, indeed. And just while he's doing that too, while another thing for me to go into is it's an article that I wanted to talk about, and we're waiting on Mr. Edwards to get online. It was an article earlier that UC Berkeley had put together, and it was a lot of segments to it, but it was basically what they put together was about how America racism is rooted in racial segregation. And the article I have in front of me, and I just want to read a little bit of it while we're waiting, because this is just was powerful stuff to me, and I would like to share that with the audience. The disproportionate use of police brutality against the people of color in America, higher COVID-19 death rates of Black and Latinx people in the healthcare system, lower percentages of home ownership, loans approved in Black communities. Society often labeled these disparities as racism or prejudice against individuals with specific racial identities. But new research from UC Berkeley shows that these inequities are symptoms of a much more racially systematic problem, residential segregation. And that's is the heat of so many problems, and they go into real detail about it. But if we have Mr. Edwards on, I'll talk about that at a later date. It's a powerful thing. But the article was so powerful that UC Berkeley put together a few days ago to every major newspaper, from Washington Post, New York Times, LA Times, San Francisco Chronicle. Every major newspaper wrote articles about it because it's a powerful article they wrote, and they made an interactive tool, mapping tool, that gives you just powerful information over the last 30 years about disparities and gentrification and just on and on and on.
Everett, I had a chance to look at that article that you sent me to watch, and it was very enlightening. A lot of our people, and can you give that out before we get Mr. Edwards on the phone? Because what we're going to do is I'm going to have him talk via my phone to us, because what he has to say is so important, and we're going to invite him back again. But tell the audience the study so that they can see it for themselves. When I saw that, man, oh my God, it was
It's
amazing.
beyond powerful. I mean, I would like to just read it all to you right now because it would blow you away. It would just blow everybody. It's a must read, and you just would be amazed by the information. One quick thing from it, I just want to say, they talked about how, like, in a neighborhood, a segregated neighborhood of all black people, that the income levels, annual income levels on average, are $1,000 less than, say, a same. You take that black neighborhood, segregated black neighborhood, you take a black person and put them in an integrated neighborhood. They grew up in an integrated neighborhood, not segregated with all black people. That person will make on average $1,000 more per year being just in an integrated environment. Now, if you take that same black person and move them to a segregated white environment, just like the segregated black environment, they're going to make $3,000 to $4,000 more dollars annually. You take the same white person, put them in that segregated black neighborhood, they're going to make the same money. So it's not about black or white. It's about the community. It's about the makeup of the community, the segregation, as far as opportunities and things that come out of that that's going to dictate your future and your earning power and your home value. The segregated black neighborhood compared to the segregated white neighborhood, home values are twice as higher. Salaries almost twice as higher. Just incredible information. Incredible information. And if anybody want to read that article, you can go to my Facebook page. You go to Everett Butler, my Facebook page, that article is on there. And you can read details of the article.
Everett, thank you. And we all need to read that article and understand how devastated communities of color have been over not just this past decade, but the past century as we come out of slavery, etc.
Absolutely.
Mr. Edwards, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I want to say just one thing for 2 more minutes because it's powerful to say what you just mentioned about the 100 years to show you the power that most of us in the Bay Area know. Most of our families came from the South. Pretty much all of us here, all of our parents came from the South, and they came from shipyard opportunities, Alameda Naval Air Station base, Treasure Island, over in Vallejo, all the shipyards. And when they came out here, they didn't just come; they came looking for opportunity. They had the jobs, but they pigeonholed our parents in certain neighborhoods. They had them go live in Hunters Point, East Oakland, West Oakland, type of thing, East Palo Alto. That's where everybody went to. They concentrated. You couldn't live it. You wasn't living in Alameda or Walnut Creek or San Ramon or these other areas that grow. So they pigeonholed, they redlined us into these areas, and that dictated our growth and our wealth over the years for our kids and our grandkids, and opportunities for home equity and other things, and just so much. And growing up in bad environmental situations, just deep. So you need to read that article. Very enlightening.
Thank you, Everett. Okay. I have Walter Edwards, the man, the myth, one of 3 men who has been and continuously fights the great fight of stopping total gentrification in Harlem, a cultural center for Black people in America that's being overrun by people who don't look like the people who live there and are currently trying to be moved out in droves. Mr. Walter Edwards, please take it away, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Doug, Dr. Ashby, and Father Butler. It is indeed a pleasure and an honor to be with you guys this evening. And we have to do something about this communication because I don't understand it at my age, and I've been on Zoom calls all evening and had no problems, but this platform for some reason won't let me be here, so we're making the best out of it. And it's like gentrification and everything else that we are fighting, we'll make it through. So thank you.
Everett, can you ask some questions because I'm getting the feedback? But the first question I want to know is, how important is it to have our young people to start getting involved in the voting process? in putting representation in there of people who really care about the politics, the community, the business. As you've been around 70 years in Harlem, one thing I've heard you say continuously is that and it's not just all white people, it's some black people who are just taking Harlem and giving it to another group of people. That's like, and I don't know if you know anything about Oakland, but there is no way, and Dr. Ashley and Everett, you both are from Oakland. If black people start trying to take Piedmont away or Montclair away, I can see in your faces, So,
and they have.
Mr. Walters, can you tell us how important it is to get involved with politics? Know your city council person, know who to vote for, know what they stand behind, and most important, follow the money. Follow the money that got them in office. I have been an active member of the Oakland East Bay Democratic Club. Janani Ramachandra, she takes no corporate money, but the other people, check out for yourself. Mr. Walters, go ahead, take it away, sir.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned the money involved with politics, because we can't have anything without good economics. Okay, you can have the best political machine. If you can't finance it, it doesn't mean a thing. You have the best social program in the world. If you can't finance it, it doesn't mean a thing. And we have to learn that. Our youth really have to learn it, because they are so far behind. My spiritual teacher told me many years ago that we didn't have to worry about white folks killing us, that we were going to have to worry about our children killing us because of their inheritance, that we are blown. And we're not going to be able to tell these young folks that, oh, we were slaves. They're going to tell us that was 100 and some odd years ago. You had plenty of time to correct that. And they're going to kill us. So we have to get it right. And we can no longer go around making the statement that the youth have to pay their dues. They paid their dues when we brought them into this world. And it's been our duty as parents to guide them until they became adults. And they are acting according to what we have taught them. So if we taught them to be one way, we can't hold them responsible without holding ourselves responsible. And politics something that we need to be very educated in. I had my former congressman to tell me, I took a proposal to him, and he read the proposal and he said, whoa, Walter, this is dynamite. He said, all my years of being in Congress, I have not received a proposal like this from anyone. I said, what? He said, yes. He says, our people come to me looking for jobs and apartments. So that tells you that we don't know what a congressman does. So how are we going to get anything from him if we don't know what he does, and how do we put him there if we don't know what he does, what powers he has, and so forth and so on. So that means that we are not educated on the position. And I hear too often that we want to put this one out of office because we're holding them accountable for something that they can't even do. And I remind them that you don't kill the office. Okay? The office you have to respect, whether you respect the person sitting in the office or not. Don't kill that office because you might be sitting there one day and you're going to need that office to be strong. You know, so we need to really have class with our children on three things especially. On our Black history, on finance, and on politics. And I'm going to say something to you that a lot of people might not accept. But my education that I have stopped it when I was 10 years of age, because that's when I came to New York. And the old folks in that two-room schoolhouse that I had to walk 3 miles to get to taught us everything that I know today. At 10 years of age, when I came to New York and went into the schools, they set me back, said I shouldn't be in the grades that I was in. And whatever they was teaching, I already knew. Okay? So we need our community people teaching our children. We're the only people on the face of the world that let outside inject intelligence into our geniuses that do not work for us. We just have to come together. I have an association with Mr. Bob Law, and one of his things is that all of us that have something to give should start weekend academies. Take 4 or 5 children and teach them what we know. Teach them with love, okay? And we will be able to do something that would be very important for us in the future.
I would like to ask a question. Because we just had Mr. Elihu Harris, Honorable Elihu Harris, and he talked about politics and business. Can you, from your, because once again, we're from Oakland, California, we're West Coast. This is not like what are the rappers' names? Tupac, Biggie. It's not East Coast and West Coast beefing. This is East Coast and West Coast coming together to make one coast. Can you tell our listener how important it is to understand the politics of the politician that they're electing? Because as Honorable Elihu Harris just said, we are electing people to represent us or represent corporations. Can you tell, and I'm seeing you shaking your head, so you know where I'm going with this. Can you explain to the audience how important it is to know who your politician is, who's supporting them, and how that has negatively impacted Harlem? Because I remember it used to be Black representation in Harlem. Google Harlem politicians and see what it look. It doesn't look like the Harlem I know. So please elaborate on that, sir.
I would just say to you, back in the day, we used to say if you dance to the music, you must pay the piper. Okay? And that's what I see happening with our elected officials. Most of them are not homegrown. Okay? And since we don't control the media, and that's why what you guys are doing is so important, they will bring in somebody from anywhere into our community and put them on TV and radio and make you think that they're the greatest Black leaders that ever came out of the womb of their mother. Okay? And the next thing we know, we're going voting for them and don't know if they believe in what we believe in or not. We can call them and they won't answer the call. I belong to organizations that we call elected officials and those are running, and some of them say they don't have time to talk to us. Okay, but we expose them for who they are. We hold them accountable. That's one of our biggest failings. We don't act as if we are free. We are free to speak whatever our beliefs are, whatever our feelings are. We are free, and we have to practice that freedom. I had an old man when I was a very young fella, first come to New York, asked me, "Son, are you free?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I'm free." He said, "How do you know you're free?" I said, "Well, Mr. Lincoln freed us, sir." He said, "That don't mean a thing. That's just words." He said, "Can you go across the street?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, how would you know if you don't take the liberty to ever go across there?" So we have to know how to act to be, and we have to speak out. Even if we're wrong, it's a learning experience for us. It's a teaching experience for some of us, because I'm quite certain each and every one of us here have heard someone say something stupid, and we would take them and do a teaching moment with them. And some of them straighten up and be so thankful that you've done that, because you showed them some love. Okay? You don't have to holler and scream and make them feel bad. Take them on the side and educate them.
Sir.
Because we are all ignorant to some degree about something.
Yes, sir.
And so we need to respect one another and show a little love. You know, no one wants to be embarrassed. So, yes, we need to teach our youth. But we got to teach them. We can't leave it for other folks to do. And we got to take those politicians and call them out or hold them accountable. You know, I think the last time we were speaking, I just have to change the subject for a minute to gentrification, if you don't mind.
Please speak on it.
You know, we've seen that just because someone do a development in our community, that's the only form of gentrification. But I remember in 1960, I was going into the military, not 1960, 1956. I was going into the military. And at that time, I was residing up in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Main Street, Bridgeport, was the black area, the business community. All the black businesses along Main Street. Well, that's when they started to build I-95, which doesn't come out to you guys. You have to take 80 to get out there. You know, but that was built a little later. But 95 was north-south. And they brought 95 straight through Main Street. Okay? You look at that, you look at the railroads. If you follow the railroads, you will find that they split the black poor side of town from the affluent side of town. I remember going to two cities in Florida, and the train would stop, and the white folks would get off one side of the train in one town, and the black folks would get off the train on the other side in a black town. Okay? So they use all these methods. And one of the biggest, and we don't call them on it, is our education systems, our great halls of education. If you look at every major school, they are sitting on the edge of a black community. And when they get ready to expand, they go out and they create whatever they want from that black community. They don't go to the affluent side. It costs them too much to go and fight and everything else. But they come and just take our property. They'll raise the taxes up to where we can't afford to pay the taxes any longer on it anyway. And just take our property. And I'm afraid when I see how they are taking all the property, not just here, but even in Africa. that they're going to go back to an old system that they had at one time. That if you don't own property, you can't vote. So we're going to be left outside holding the bag.
Again.
So this form of gentrification is much deeper than what we just ordinarily discuss. And we have to get into the deeper sides of
it. One of the things that when you identify just a minute, Everett and Dr. Ashley, as you can see, I can fire these questions off to this wise man all day. So please join in before I ask you some more questions.
I just want to say one thing: the whole gentrification thing that we're talking about, and the deeper part that you're talking about, Mr. Edwards. That article I mentioned before, I'm not trying to just promote an article. It's just that our article is all of that. And you guys, I just wish we had to do a show on articles. That article is so powerful because it gets into all of that and the in-depth reasons for all of that. Gentrification, structural race. It's always to do with structural racism, and that leads hand in hand to residential segregation. That's where it all stems from, and all of that is this study did an interactive map of the whole United States of America, and it has from Harlem to Oakland, every city, and it breaks down over 30 years that you'll see the change in the racial dynamics and the housing dynamics and in all associations. It's tremendously powerful, and it gets into that in-depth thing that you're talking about. This article is all of that, and it's the extreme, getting down to the solutions, all of the problems, identifying possible solutions is just the most. Oh, it's a must read. It's just a must read.
Well, you've been blessed. You've been blessed, brother. It's on you to promote it and teach
yes, sir.
Around you. So I have no bad feelings about you promoting that. Please do. I'll take a step back and give you time to promote it.
Everett, and please, because I don't know about you, Dr. Ashley, but I watched it 2 or 3 times. This was a study by white people that articulated the process of gentrification step by step. And since Mr. Walter Edwards opened the door for you, can you please, because Everett, you are very detailed. I think that's the rocket scientist part of you. Please articulate that from how you, your perspective of that study. Thank you, sir.
Let me unmute my mic. Yeah, it's so much. It's hard for me to summarize it. That's why I almost just need to read it because it's too much. I'll miss. When I talk to you, I'm giving you segments, all these different segments of it, and it's so powerful. And it just the basic premises of it is just the segregation, the racial segregation. That's the root of our disposition, of our standing, of our lack of standing as a people. It's got to do with community. It's not to do with my race versus a white person. It's not an individual. It's the area you live in dictates everything. Where you live at, your community, the racial makeup, the segregation of your community dictates your opportunities. And it's just, that's like what we were talking about earlier with the mayor is, if you take a kids like they grew up in the hood, like I grew up in the hood, you take all of those kids that are in the hood, like M. Sobrani, where I grew up at, you put them in this area, this all white area, and you put them growing up there. All of them, mostly all of them will be successful. They won't be on the street selling drugs, doing all of this stuff. They're gonna have higher incomes. They're gonna be homeowners. They're gonna work at top firms. They're gonna have the education scores are gonna be great. They're gonna do well, and it's because of the environment and the resources. That's everything. When you're a kid, you have to be exposed to an environment that's going to make you succeed. You got to have ambition. Yeah, all that's got to be there. You could be in areas where all those resources and not do well. but that's a small percentage. Most of the people are gonna flow with the herd, are going to do well because you have the resource and opportunity. That's going to drive you to a certain place. It's economic opportunity. And what you don't have in the areas where we grew up in, you don't have that. You have so many things against you from your environmental area. The area itself is harsh. I'm talking about the environmental area. Lead pipes for your water causing different things. Lead in the paint, stuff like that, causing us to have asthma at 4 times to 1 of a white person in the black communities. And the kids stand up all night wheezy and can't sleep and go to school and they're tired from asthma. They're not going to do well. They're not going to have achievement scores. Are not going to be as well. They're going to be slightly off. Things like that. These dictate your path. And that's the art of you. That's the extent of it. Like somebody like myself and you guys, we're successful. We grew up in that environment, but it's by pure luck and fate. Yeah, I had the desire in me. You know, I came out of my area, grew up in a war zone, got an engineering degree, had an academic scholarship, done all of these things. But that's why I give back so much. That's why I'm always in my community and giving so much of myself and everything about me. Because I'm so grateful. I know how blessed I am. I know how blessed I am. You know, my younger brother had 2 sons, my nephews. One of them got killed in 2004. 35 minutes before his 17th birthday, shot and killed. 35 minutes before his 18th birthday, excuse me. He was 17, 35 minutes away from being 18. 2 years later, his brother and my brother's only other son in 2006, shot and killed at 17 and a half in my neighborhood. That's where I grew up at. That's where I come from. You know, seeing most of my friends in jail or shot and killed in my teens and young ages, you know, but I was around all of that stuff. And some of that stuff swayed me in as a teenager. It's even smart as I swayed me in, but I was still able to maneuver and find a different path. But you in environments like ones I grew up in, and we're talking about, you have to come and give so much at young ages to change the path of most of the people. It takes and that's just my whole standing with everything that I talk about and try to do to make people understand. Because this study that I'm talking about shows you how if you're provided the right resources, things are going to happen for you automatically. Just automatically. If you put in that different environment, it's going to automatically happen for you. You know.
Brother, but don't mind. Because you hit on something extremely important. They take our children, and instead of giving them a ticket for jaywalking or something, they take them and lock them up and give them a. And because of that record, they cannot get certain jobs. They cut their path off from a young age. And we permit this to happen. That should never happen. Okay? So they set us up for failure. And I will say to you and to anyone that's listening, that the folks that have been doing this to us are cowards. And they are totally afraid that we're going to come back and do something about it. You have to realize that they annihilated the Native Americans, and they didn't come back and do anything. They took the Japanese and wiped them out, and they haven't come back to do anything. They've been trying to get rid of us ever since they lost on slavery. And we are still surviving and laughing about it. They can't understand that. How they can put us through so much and we can still have such a mind and believe in ourselves and in our God.
Yes, sir.
Don't care what denomination we are.
Yes, sir.
We believe.
Yeah.
That's fair for them.
Dr. Ashley, I'd like to ask you, what is the psychological effect of kids just listening what Everett just said and listening what Mr. Walter Edwards just said? When a child knows that he's in a war zone that has no resources and has to survive, everyone and Everett, I went to school with you. My brother, the stuff you telling me what happened to you, I know a lot about because we hung out together. But doctor, tell us the psychological effect for our kids and how we as parents can help our kids, strengthen our kids to say, don't worry about where you come from. Look at where you're going. How do we get that in that mindset? Everett, and I'm gonna use this last terminology. When you were fighting the government and when I was fighting billion-dollar companies, when the days turned into weeks, turned into months, turned into years, you start doubting yourself. But you surround yourself with people who are supporting you. Not, oh, you'll never win. The white man has too much money. Doc, tell us how we as parents, as guardians of the young people, preparing them to be successful leaders, business leaders or political leaders, how do we arm our kids to win? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. I will address that and then also have a question for Mr. Edwards. But again, developing resilience starts at home. This is all of our literature and psychology talks about around the 1980s. You know, there was this debate of nature versus nurture and this idea of how do you cultivate the self-esteem of a child. We're looking at resilience, right? The ability to go through hardship, come out on the other side, persistence. Unfortunately, we don't always download the information we need to in our child before we send them off into the world, because the world is going to send them messages and from a variety of sources. There is a crabs in a barrel mentality. We've talked about education, but what we haven't talked on is the bullying that happens in these classrooms when children show that they're smart. Shut up. Oh, you acting white, or you're this and that. Like, we're not talking about these things and where the light can be, unfortunately extinguished. So it takes a communal approach of teaching at home, right? Building constantly and developing that resilience. And then also, I think for our parents and grandparents, they can be very proud and not share their own failures in times that they've stumbled and gotten up. So there is an opportunity to remind people where you come from and know that, you know what, mama's gone through this, daddy's gone through this. I had this disappointment. This is how I changed my mindset. This is how I re-strategized. This is how I asked for help. Or wait, I didn't have the help, but now I'm going to give you what I didn't get. Right. So it's really opening that up for children to understand, I do want you to go further than me. That's a different conversation though. But I wanted to bring in Mr. Edwards. You said something so profound. And you being in Harlem, I can't help but to pick up on the sense of Pan-Africanism that you spoke of when you talked about what's happening on the continent of Africa. And I too recently read an article about how Sierra Leone sold off a large segment of their rainforest to China. And being that you are in Harlem, and we know Brother Marcus Garvey, right, one of our ancestors, was very big during that time in talking about Harlem. Can you tell us, because again, Oakland, we're a baby as far as culture, but you're in that Black, African diasporic cultural epicenter. Can you tell us a little bit about what that and what's preserved, because we're just trying to hold on, but you have so much wisdom. But I just wanted to highlight that Pan-Africanism thought that I think has been lost. So East Coast, West Coast, but also where we are in the diaspora.
Doctor, I'm glad that you asked that because it's lost in Harlem. When I was a little boy, the man that adopted me, or I adopted him, he was the businessman in the community with the grocery stores. And I would go around and help him put the bottles, because he took the soda bottles and beer bottles back then, and got money for bringing them in. And I would take them and put them in the basement. And he would say, "Get out of here, boy. You're too young, blah, blah." And they just didn't chase me away. Okay, so we became like father and son. And I worked with him until I was 18 and went into the military. Where the store was across the street from where they got all the material for the Schoenberg Library from the Marcus Garvey movement. Down the street was the funeral parlor that gave the Masonic funerals, where the funeral director would march with the band and everything for those Masonic funerals. Next door to me was what they would say peace, Father Divine's movement. Okay? Everywhere I looked, I had some enlightenment. Even as poor as we were, living in small rooms, kitchenettes, maybe 3 or 4 of us in one, we still had pride and we still had family. And there was one person in the block whose child was going to college. And our parents, those who was in charge, would say, why don't you be like so-and-so? See, he's going to get his education. We had something to drive us. At every block, we had what we call a race man that would be standing on the corner talking about race. Okay, would be teaching us daily, whether we liked it or not. And get off your soapbox, get off that ladder, But they was teaching us. You don't have that today. The worst thing that happened to us was desegregation. Okay, it broke the families up. We had communities up until that time. You speak of Oakland as a community, but Oakland is not the community that I visited many years ago. Okay?
Such wisdom and profound reflection. We'll be getting them back shortly, but wow.
Absolutely. Agree. Absolutely. You're right about Oakland. It's changed. It's even different, compared to, like, as we know, growing up as kids, the whole dynamic makeup is quite different. Right now, it's still one of the most integrated cities. Actually, I was looking at the stats the other day. It showed like we have about 25% white and about the same number of about 27% black, and Asian about 23%, Hispanic about 23 or 24%, and 16% Asian. So it's one of the most integrated from a standpoint of different racials and diverse. It's actually one of the most diverse cities, but it's inter municipally segregated, meaning that everybody are within their little groups or cliques in Oakland. That's like, neighborhoods is all those people live in segments. And for instance, the Oakland Hills, that's where most of all the white people live at. And the flatlands, that's where you're going to have most of the blacks living in certain parts of the flatlands, and then other parts, the Hispanics in certain segments of the flatland. It's broken up in a very segregated way. Oakland. And you got Piedmont, surrounded, like we was talking about in the show, that's its own separate entity in Oakland, surrounded by Oakland. That is a whole rich, different type of thing, predominantly white. And my mother was a maid. I was saying earlier, when I was a kid, I used to go there in the summer. My mother was a maid for some people in Piedmont. And it's the first time I ever seen an elevator in a house. I'm like, in Oakland, go there, drive there, and they had an elevator in their house. Like an elevator. That's how those mansions, which pretty much most of the houses up there are all mansions. It's weird how the makeup of our town is really set up.
Absolutely. And it makes me think of what Mr. Edwards said when he said, how do you know that you're free, right? So it made me think about what happens when people want to freely move throughout the city, own homes in certain areas, and even if they financially qualify for that, do they have the freedom to do so, or are there policies in place? And I've been a resident of Los Angeles for almost 15 years, and it's very similar, where you have, Ladera Heights, and you have Windsor Hills, and you have communities, Baldwin Hills, and where African Americans, have been able to live foster communities, but if they wanted to, even our older celebrities, they weren't able to, the Ray Charleses, live in Beverly Hills, or even individuals of other communities. There wasn't that freedom.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Yes,
So even sometimes from rejection, or what we say in psychology, there could be post-traumatic growth. So there was a strengthening of an area of a community that has been lasting for some time, with a rich history of generations,
yes,
and
ma'am.
parts of West LA and going into South LA. However, shouldn't people have the right and the freedom to choose and migrate as they want to? Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, we don't.
Hmm.
We kind of do, but it's still limitations there, and it's things
Hmm.
that keep you. They use um, policies, rules, and laws, different things to try
Hmm.
to pigeonhole us into certain areas and keep us out of
Hmm.
certain areas. That's still going on now, and that's a shame. It shouldn't be that way. But we have to
Hmm.
break that, and we're doing that now. In our age now, we're trying to break that, and we're doing like me. I'm living in an area that I shouldn't be, but the area that I'm in now, fortunate, very fortunate, is an area that's had
Hmm.
extreme great growth and stuff, and
Hmm.
it's because I got myself, into the right areas, and
Hmm.
tried to get that information, areas of growth and opportunity
Hmm.
and home equity, and to build wealth and to build
Hmm.
stuff, and that's what we shoot to do. And one thing that Mr. Evans was talking about earlier, talking about our kids, and when we talked to them, he was so spot on with me. I think about my two girls. My whole
Hmm.
thing was everything to tell my kids all my faults, like he was talking about.
Hmm.
When I grew up, because I didn't do everything right. I grew up in the hood, and I did some bad things. I did some
Hmm.
things that I shouldn't have done because of my environment. It got me in situations, but I was lucky enough to get my way through and not to be unscathed, just by the grace of God, by the grace of
Hmm.
God. But I told my kids all of that. They know everything about every brother, good and bad. And I told them that from day one, and preached to them about that, and told them if they had ever had any doubts about anything, or thought about going down different paths, to come talk to me about it, because I was their
Hmm.
friend. They can come talk to me about anything. They decided they want to smoke some weed. Come talk to me about it. I'd have been here, whatever they was going through at a young age. So
Hmm.
we had that kind of a friendship where everything that
Hmm.
happened in their life to this day, they're 38 and 39. They come talk to me about everything, about their boyfriends, about dudes, about situations. They come to me and talk to me about it, because we built that kind of trust from day
Hmm.
one of sharing everything with your kids and giving them all the things I wish I would have known at a young age that would have helped me do better. I gave them that knowledge, and they took it and they ran with it. And they're doing better than me at their young ages than I was doing. And I'm just so proud of them. And it's all about you being open with your kids, you teaching your kids, you sharing everything with your kids, you
Hmm.
having that open door, and giving them all of yourself, and give them your knowledge, and give them your wisdom
Hmm.
of how to play the
Hmm.
game, and how to do better than what you did, and how to do more, and all of that. And that's what it's about. For all of us, we got to play it forward with our youth, whether it's your kids or whether it's the youth, who you
Hmm.
can go talk to, who you can spend your time with. It's about playing it forward when you're older and you got wisdom of things and you know things. It's sharing that knowledge.
Everett, I think that you hit it on the head when you said you're so proud of your daughters, which you can tell, but you want
Absolutely.
them to do better than you. And I think that's
Absolutely.
something that is, sometimes people are given lip service, and sometimes the actions don't align. But
Yes.
Doug, I see you have us back.
I have been I have been on the phone with Mr. Walter Edwards. We're coming into the last 6 minutes.
Mhm.
Mr. Edwards, can you give us a closing minute of what you think about gentrification? And once again, we will have you back, because last week and this week, the knowledge that you shared with us, we couldn't get it anywhere else. So take it away, sir.
Well, I'm just honored to be here with you guys, and it's a learning experience for me also, because when I talk, I hear myself before you hear me, and so I'm making certain that I'm trying to say the right thing. And gentrification is something that we permit because we don't invest in our communities really, and we don't unite in our communities, and that's what we have to start doing. We have to stop talking against each other and find a way to talk together with one another, and we'll find that we probably all have pretty much the same interests. We find the little thing that we don't like about one, and that'll take the whole conversation, where it might be 5% we don't like and 95% we love. and we just blow the 95% out because we take the 5% and concentrate on it. We have to learn to unite and communicate with one another different than we do.
Mr. Edwards, we at Black Business Roundtable Podcast Show appreciate you. We respect you. And we look forward to having you back anytime you want to come. And as you can see, technical difficulties or not, we find a way to make it happen. Just like Harriet Tubman found a way to carry slaves into the free land. Thank you, sir. Your 84 years of experience, of life experience, is enlightening all of us here.
You guys keep up your good work, please. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. God bless you. Thank you. Everett, would you like to say anything, or Dr. Ashley, to Mr. Walters before he gets off the phone?
Thank you. Just thank you for sharing your wisdom. And I think the oral tradition is how we'll be able to preserve history. So we just have to keep taking in and soaking in what we can when we can. So thank you again, Mr. Edwards.
Thank you, Doctor.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you. Absolutely, sir. We appreciate you big time because that's what it's about, playing it forward, and that's what you're doing, playing it forward.
Well, let's keep rolling, Everett. You have the heart and soul in the game, so keep it going.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. Family strong.
That's funny.
Thank you. And we'll see you next time, Mr. Edwards. Thank you very much. As we're wrapping.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank
Have
you.
a good one.
You too, sir. Thank you for coming on again. God bless.
You're welcome. All right. Same to you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, as we wrap up another powerful episode of Black Business Roundtable Podcast Show, I want to thank Dr. Ashley. I want to thank Everett Butler. I want to thank Donnie Glover of Black USA News and BeMoreNews.com. Be sure to chime in to Chap and Friends on Monday, Party Marty Let's Talk on Tuesday, Magnolia Engineering and Construction. Their mission is to become a premier building and engineering resource for large-scale and commercial transportation building projects in the Bay Area and beyond. Their vision, to further the presence of Black women in the construction and engineering industry through key partnership and buildings, contract, and municipality, government, and transportation sectors. You go get them, Magnolia Engineering and Construction, and you got my vote, and I got your T-shirt. Thank you. Second, we want to say, show the spotlight on local business licensed cosmetologist Dominique Berry, who did the makeup for the photo shoot last week for Magnolia Engineering, or 2 weeks ago for Magnolia Engineering and Construction. And their Instagram is at Nichelle B Beauty. That's spelled N as in Nancy, ICHELLE B Beauty. Also, we want to thank Dr. Ashley. We hope when people want to get educated in regards to being a great psychologist, that they come to the University of the West, where you are chair, or yes, I want to make sure I get it right. You are chair of the Department of Psychology and an associate professor. But you have done an amazing job to elevate this program. Everett, you speak for yourself. When our people see three people out here who look like them, and we all look like Black America. Hear how Everett, you went and you did your thing with the government, and when they tried to do what they did, the bad things, you fought.
Absolutely.
I don't think anybody's gonna mess with you, Doc, because when you talk to them, you're gonna hypnotize them. I will do whatever you want, because you are amazing. And
Thank
for
you.
to be young, intelligent, Black, female, you keep doing what you're doing. I love you, cuz.
Thank you, guys. Thank
We love you. We love you. We love you.